Oh, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. Now today I'm going to make a start on cleaning up and helping preserve the finish on the 1952 Anglia. If you saw a recent video, I did actually talk about my dilemma in terms of whether to polish it, whether to leave it exactly as it is, totally original, etc, etc. And I've decided that I'm going to cut off the dead paint just by using a very mild polish, a carnuba wax, and then I will oily rag it with some boiled linseed oil, and that dries off, not fully, but it gives it like a bit of a sheen, a bit of an oily protection. And I think when you're trying to preserve a 70-year-old paint finish which has still got plenty of life left in it, I think that's probably the way to go. There are different ways to do it. You can use a clear sealer, which I'm not really into that, but I like the idea of using boiled linseed oil, because then you can sort of put it on a little bit thicker where the seams are to sort of protect, to keep moisture out of these seams where they always tend to start rotting, and B, you can just apply it regularly, just give it a wipe over, and so on. I'm not quite sure where it is, but there is a tin of it somewhere. So yeah, but before I can do that, because you can see it's really quite faded, I need to give it a wash, because if I just start polishing this back to try and get a uniform finish before I oily rag it, then it's just going to sort of not look great. But before I can do that, it's really dirty, it's really dusty in here. So if I start polishing this, all it's going to do is grind in the dirt into the paint finish, which isn't a great idea. Now, this isn't going to be a car detailing video. If you want to learn how to detail a car, this ain't the place. But all I'm going to do is really do what I can to preserve the original paint so that it lasts as long as possible. I mean, it's taken 70 years to get to this point, so it's not going to imminently fall to pieces, but I would just like a bit more protection on this paint finish in order to help it survive the future years that hopefully the car stays with us, because I do plan to keep this one for quite a while. I bought it from a friend of mine last year. It's a great little car, so original, and that is why I wanted it. But as I mentioned in the previous video, it's just how do you go about maintaining and keeping the aged finish and not, try and slow down its deterioration. One day it'll probably will need repainting, but it shouldn't be for a little while yet. Yesterday evening I just attended to the battery terminals with a 1952 tub of Holt's No Corrode. This is the stuff that you put on the battery terminals to stop it all corroding and getting all horrible. How do I know this is from 1952, you might ask? Well, there is a story behind that, because in the early 1990s, about 1990-91 or thereabouts, I went to go visit a friend of mine in Sheffield, the same lad who's got the XK120 project that I introduced in the video, I think that was last year, and he took me around one of his favourite scrapyards just outside Sheffield, which was in the process of being cleared, but there were still lots of old vehicles around and about, which was really cool. And in one corner there were several commercial vehicles still around, and in the back of one of them there were boxes and boxes of old car products, and included amongst them were things like this No Corrode, and in amongst them there was a delivery note, which I've still got somewhere, which was dated 1952. So it seemed highly appropriate to use 1952 No Corrode on a 1952 Ford Anglia. And even some of the other old containers are still here somewhere. There were boxes and boxes of things, polishes. Let me just see if I can get down here. Some of these old tins up here. Oops, ouch. Some of these old Holt's, because that was Holt's No Corrode. You've got Holt's running in compound, white wall tyre cleaner. Some of that Johnson's car plate, that came from there. There's the original box for the No Corrode. So many tins came from that particular consignment, exactly as they were found in the back of this old delivery van. Like I say, somewhere there's a delivery note, I'm not quite sure where that is. But anyway, let's get back on topic. Because in places it's shiny-ish. There's a bit of a shine on the wings, I think probably where people wipe their hands over here. And in other places, such as on the roof, it's really flat. So the idea is to try and get it fairly uniform and then oily rag it. So it's a lovely day out there, so I will move this outside, give it a wash. It can be drying off in the sun. And in the meantime, I'll dig out the carnuba wax and make a start on just treating up and improving the overall finish of the paint on this old side valve Ford. Okay, well, the Anglia is outside now, basking in the sun. What a wonderful day it is too, lovely spring day. And as I've mentioned on several occasions, if you just have a look around, this paintwork is totally original, and that is why I bought the car. You can still see the remains of the old pinstripe along here. A bit more of it there. If it had been repainted, I wouldn't have been interested in buying it, to be honest. Overly restored cars, I mean, I get some cars do need restoring when they get to a certain point, there's no option, but if you can have a car that's got the original paint, and I can look at that paint, as I've said to people before, and some guy in 1952 down at Dagenham put that paint on there, and you can't recreate that. Once that's gone, and once it's been repainted, that's it, it's gone for good. So, for as long as possible, I like this car to keep its original overcoat. But to do that, it needs to just be looked after and maintained, and it's probably arguably more difficult to maintain a car with original, slightly scratchy paint than it is a car with shiny new paint, because that, you just have to wax it. That's all you have to do in a nicely repainted car. And there's a lot to be said for having a nicely repainted car, don't get me wrong, but I prefer original paint finishes, even when they're a bit scratchy in places like this is. Let me know in the comments if you're of a similar mindset. There's a very broad church, a classic car world. Some people want restored cars, and that's great, nothing wrong with that. Some people want original cars, and that's kind of the camp that more often than not I find myself in. So, like I said, the first thing I'm going to do is give it a wash, give it a rinse down. It can be drying off in the sun, and later I'll make a start with the carnuba wax. There we go, she's all rinsed down, so she can be drying off now, and then we can attend to the paintwork at last. 1950s utilitarian motoring at its finest. I think it's probably the cheapest car that was on sale back in the early 1950s, and then later the Ford Pop 103E came along, which of course was based on this, but actually replaced this. I don't think they were ever sold concurrently, or at least not for any great length of time. The Pop had the 1172cc engine, so that was the only real upgrade over the Anglia. Everything else on the Anglia was just a little bit nicer, the bigger lamps, nicer dashboard, the Bakelite dash, and so on. So that'll dry, won't take very long to dry, and then we can set to with the carnuba wax. Now, like I say, I'm going to go with the boiled linseed option, but the alternative was just to wax polish it. Obviously that's something you need to replace and redo every now and again, like with any paint surface, and that was something I did give some thought to, but A, I'm not really a big fan of polishing, and B, I think the car suits oily ragging. Now, if I had gone down the polishing route, in addition to that no crowd and those old tins up there of the Holt's products, I also found in the same batch from 1952 various old car polishes. We've got this Vauxhall Car Wax here, which has never been used, and a couple of tins, there are some more over there, of quick wax polish for polishing cellulose, lacquers, protect and preserves all finishes. This is a fairly soft wax, whereas the Simonise, the well-known Simonise polish, is quite a tough wax to put on and polish off. This is a bit softer. Let's just have a quick look. I'll put that on there. Oops, that's not going well. That didn't go well. Right, Vauxhall. So that's the Vauxhall car polish. That would have been used, 1952, so that would have been, would that be the late L series Wyverns and Veloxes, or had the E series come in by then? I've got a feeling that was a little bit later. But anyway, that would have been a Vauxhall polish. If only I had somewhere to put it. Right. And this, like I say, is the quick wax polish. I have used this, I do use this sometimes, because it does apply quite nicely. It's quite a soft wax, and like I say, this dates to 1952, which is just perfect for a 1952 Ford Anglia. There's a couple of tins of that there. I've never even looked in the Vauxhall one, so I don't know what this is like. I can't even see what the old label had on it, on the top, just on the sides here. Vauxhall wax car polish. I'm not sure who that was actually made by, but it says prepared for Vauxhall cars. So that's quite nice. This is the stuff that I will be using. Rustin's boiled linseed oil. Quicker drying than raw linseed oil. And I've heard that. I know if you use normal linseed oil, it can take forever to dry when it's been applied to a paint finish. I know one thing you have to be very careful with is that the rags you use, they can actually catch fire. If you put a huge bundle of very wet linseed oil laden rags together and leave them in the garage, they have been known to combust. So you have to be a bit careful what you do with the rags. It may even say something on here about it. There you go. Application cloths. What's that? And soiled cleaning rags may self-ignite without warning. Dispose of safely to avoid fire risks. Lay out flat in single layers to dry or wash out well with warm soapy water before disposal. So there you go, you have been warned. If you have a go with this boiled linseed oil, be very careful what you do with the rags that you use to apply it. You don't brush it on, you rag it on. Like I say, I'll put it on fairly thickly in the joint so that it runs into the seams where the beading is between the wing and the rest of the body. But on the rest of the car, I'll just apply it fairly lightly, and I'd rather apply 2 or 3 thin coats and let them sort of sit, dry off in between, rather than dolloping on a thick coat and hoping that one day it'll dry. So that's going to be the approach with that. Oh, there we go, she's pretty much dry now. It's half an hour later, and I thought it'd be worth just having a quick walk around just to show the car before any attention is given to the paintwork. Like I said, in some parts it's a little bit shiny, and others where you walk past and maybe rub against the wing, it's a bit of a shine there, but there's not much here or here, and there's none up there at all. Same on the front wings. The sides have been sort of polished up a bit just by people brushing past and rubbing their hand on it, etc. But it's very inconsistent. Let's just close that. Another area that's going to need a little bit of pulling up, really just for cosmetic purposes, are the wheels. Well, the logical thing to do would be to strip and repaint them, but I just wonder if I can treat the wheels and get rid of some of the readiness of the rust, whether they can actually be made to look a little bit better than that. So I will have an experiment with the wheels once I've attended to the paintwork on the car itself. And this angle with the boot open, just while I'm drying out inside the boot recess there, is a good demonstration of how the hinged number plates used to work on these and also on the early Minis. The boot area wasn't particularly great on the Anglias and the Pops and cars of its type. You could get some stuff in there, but if you were a family going on holiday, it would all be a bit tight. So it was designed that you could run with the boot lid open like this as a ledge held in place by these straps. But of course the problem then would be you can't see the number plate, and legally you have to be displaying a number plate at the back. So that's why the hinged number plate came in. And there you go, J295, original Ace number plate. That's a good idea though, unless it was raining of course, in which case your luggage would probably get quite wet. One day I might even look at tidying up the under bonnet area as well. It's not too bad, but it's a little bit grimy in places. I've sprayed a bit of oil around, but maybe that one's bulling up a bit sometime. Okay, well, she's back inside now, and I've dug out the polish. This is the carnuba wax. I'll be using some of that. This stuff, bought this years ago. Quite useful stuff. The more stubborn bits where there's a bit of staining, I'm going to use some of this metal polish, which is a lot more abrasive, and that'll just come in good here where there's little bits of brown stainage where there is some surface rust on the paint. So I'll deal with that, especially on top of the headlights. They need just a bit of, the idea is to just sort of treat where there's any red rusty bits, and it comes out, it sort of converts into more of a grey sort of colour rather than the red rust, and it just stands out a little bit less. So I'm going to crack on with this. It's probably not going to be the most fascinating video if I try and record me actually polishing and faffing around doing that, so I'll report back once I've had a bit of a go at the paintwork to see how it's going to come up. I have actually noticed that in the past someone has had a bit of a go with some light polish. You can see the white deposits and some of the little surface rusty bits here and there. So what I'm actually doing is just continuing what someone else has already dabbled with. Like I say, these white patches here are the remnants of like a cheap polish. Now, I've had a bit of a go at the bonnet. Well, obviously I'm not going to win any concours awards, but you can see the difference between this one. This is just a bit of oil, this patch here. This is just where it's had oil on the hinge You can see it's kept the original sort of scarrings of age, but even now it's got more of a finish to it compared to this. Obviously I'm not going for shine, I don't particularly want shine, but if it means that the paint's protected, then that's got to be a good thing. So that took about 10 minutes, I suppose. I did it twice with the carnuba wax, then I used the chrome cleaner on just some of the more stubborn areas, and it just, whereas the rust is obviously brown where it's untreated, it just sort of tones it down a little bit. And then once this is sealed with the linseed oil, it should just need, you know, occasional periodic reapplications, and it'll help protect the paint for hopefully quite a long time to come. Again there, see, I went along there using this metal polish. Other brands are available, of course, and it doesn't hide the sort of the surface rust and the imperfections, the blemishes, if you like, on the paintwork. It just tones them down a little bit, and that is what I'm aiming to achieve with this particular bit of work. And now time to stop talking and crack on with the rest. Well, that's the grill done now. I'm not trying to get it super clean. There's sort of ground in dirt in the edges here, which I'm quite happy to keep. Same with the badge, it's all a little bit grungy when you get in close. But, like I say, this isn't about making it a show-winning car. It's purely to level up the paintwork, and then it can be oily ragged as and when necessary, like here. There's sort of 70 years of grunge here, so I'm not trying to clean this out. I'm not even going to attempt to clean it out. It's oily. That's a build-up of years and years of grime, dirt, and so on. So that'll stay. I'm really just trying to level up the paint finish. Once I've done that, it can all be treated. There we go. Right, the next things I'm going to do are the headlights. Now these have got a fair bit of surface rust on. Looking at them, I think someone's had to go with a polish before, so I'm not really doing anything new. I'm just maybe doing it a little bit more thoroughly. So these are going to be the next things to do. Let's have a look at the other one. This one's very much the same. No rot through, but just lots of surfacey rust through having been stored since the early 1960s until just a few years ago. So these are going to take a little bit of time. Let's see what we can make these look like. Here's a before shot. Right, so I don't know how well that comes out, but it has lost a lot of the redness of the corrosion and blemishes that were there before. This is how it looked before. Not hugely different, but different, and it's got a bit of a surface to it now. Now on the side of the bonnet there's a fair bit of staining just going along here, so this is going to be the next panel that I tackle, and hopefully we can just get rid of some of these little blebby marks and just make it look a little bit better. Okay, there we go, it's been done, this side panel on the bonnet, and it's still got its old look. But the paintwork has just evened out a little bit, and it's got more life to it, and there's just a protective surface on it, whereas there wasn't that before. I've got rid of some of the staining along here. That just improves the cosmetics a little bit. Same down here. And once that's oiled up, hopefully it'll just sort of help protect it going forward, which is the name of the game really. But I still think it's 70 years, still plenty of dirt, ingrained if you like, in the corners and on here, so it still looks old. There's no getting away from the fact that this is old paint, which is exactly the look I'm aiming for. Let me know in the comments if you would have done this, or would you have just left it well alone? Because like I said in the previous video, it's a bit of a dilemma really as to how far to go without spoiling it. But I think that'll probably do. If I can get the rest of the car looking something like that, I've done the nose cone, top of the bonnet, side of the bonnet so far. If I can get the rest of it looking something like that on the headlight, I'll be quite happy. The doors especially are very patchy, shiny in parts, dull in others, which is fine, but from a preservation point of view it just needs a bit of TLC. Well, we're getting there slowly. Okay, well, a couple of days have passed and the whole car has been gone over. It's been given the once over with the carnuba wax just to bring a bit of a sheen and a finish back to the paintwork, and I think it's pretty much achieved its goal. Now what I have done is I've got hold of the linseed oil, which is down there, and I've just done a few little bits. I've done the number plate and the bottom down here. Now I did it the day before yesterday in the evening, so it's been probably a couple of days or so. It's still a little bit tacky, so it could be that the ambient temperature isn't that high at the moment, and it's probably not drying off quite as quickly as it probably would do if the weather was a lot warmer. I did do a little bit on Big Dodge just to try it out, and that dried off reasonably well. I did put some on there and that seems okay. That seems to have dried off. So I may leave the final linseed oiling until later in the year when the weather's a bit warmer. But anyway, even if I don't know anything straight away, it's given it a bit of a surface. Now I was going to take it for a spin, but sadly it won't start. There's nothing happening, so I've put the battery on charge just to see if it's that. But there's nothing clicking, nothing happening at all, so I'll probably have a look in the morning. I'll let the battery charge up overnight and have a look in the morning and see if it's willing to play ball. And then I'll take a photo of it when it's outside and you can see it a little bit better. But overall, it's just cleaned the paintwork up a bit, and I'm happier with it that it is at least a little bit protected now. And oily ragging it will only improve that. So, thanks very much for watching. I'll report back when I've had a go oily ragging it, which will probably be a bit later in the year maybe, or at least when the weather warms up a bit. So I will leave it at that for now, I think. So thanks very much for watching. Please have a look around the rest of the channel. There are loads of videos on here now. There'll be more videos along very, very soon. So bye for now.